What if I told you we were not alone on this planet? That there were other people like us who thought, felt, and dreamed. But one day they all mysteriously vanished. It all started with a tiny bone fragment found on the floor of an ice-covered cave in Siberia. This bone belonged to a 3-year-old girl, but she was no ordinary child. Her father was from one human species, and her mother was from another. Her existence was proof that just 40,000 years ago, the world was home to at least 4 different human species, all of them living, breathing, and crossing paths at the same time. This little girl's bone was the key to a secret that would rewrite our human history. So, what happened to these other people who resembled us but were not us? Why are we Homo sapiens the only ones left today? In this journey, we'll travel deep into time. We will witness the final, secret-filled days of our cousins, the Neanderthals, in glacial Europe, who had the same intelligence as us and even larger brains. We'll explore the lost world of the Denisovans, who lived in Asia's impenetrable mountains and possessed almost superhuman abilities. And we'll listen to the incredible story of the hobbits, Homo floresiensis, who survived for 1 million years on the Indonesian islands by hiding from giant lizards. To continue these mysterious journeys, remember to subscribe to the Human Stories channel and like the video. Your support helps the secrets of the past reach more people. Now, sit back and let's go back 10,000 years to a time when we were not the last humans on Earth. Close your eyes and imagine the world 50,000 years ago. It was a much more crowded, wild, and diverse place. If you had gone for a walk in a single valley in Central Asia, you might have run into your Neanderthal cousins hunting mammoths with wooden spears. A little further on, you could have seen your Denisovan relatives climbing peaks that would take the breath away from modern mountaineers. If you had headed southeast to the Indonesian islands, you could have met the tiny hobbits, who were barely a meter tall but expertly evaded Komodo dragons. And scattered among all these groups, our direct ancestors, modern humans, Homo sapiens, were just beginning their march to spread across the globe. This isn't a science fiction movie scenario. This was the normal state of our planet for most of human history. For hundreds of thousands of years, we were not alone. Multiple human species shared the world. Each was perfectly adapted to its own environment. Each had its own unique, extraordinary abilities. But today, when you look around, only we exist. Only Homo sapiens survived. What happened to everyone else? The story begins with our closest relatives, the Neanderthals. For over 350,000 years, they ruled Europe and Western Asia. They were not the coarse, wild, senseless cavemen that Hollywood films portray. Recent discoveries paint a dramatically different picture. Neanderthals left flowers on the graves of their loved ones. They made jewelry from eagle claws, cooked complex meals, and cared for disabled or elderly individuals in their communities for decades. This was proof of deep empathy and social bonds. Their brains were anatomically larger than ours. They had languages, arts, and complex social structures. They were the true masters of the planet, who had managed to survive the harsh conditions of the Ice Age. But around 40,000 years ago, something went terribly wrong. In 2024, scientists made a chilling discovery in a cave in southern France. They found the remains of a Neanderthal man they named Torin. When researchers analyzed Torin's DNA, they uncovered a deeply unsettling truth. Torin's family had been living in complete isolation from other Neanderthal groups for a full 50,000 years. Just for a moment, think about that. Imagine your city, your neighborhood, being completely cut off from the rest of humanity for 50,000 years. No new people, no new genes, no outside connections. Torin's DNA carried evidence of extreme inbreeding within this isolated group. This was a genetic death spiral that was slowly choking all Neanderthal populations. Evidence shows that while our ancestors were building vast social networks spanning thousands of kilometers and exchanging information and genes, the Neanderthals were doing the opposite. They were becoming increasingly fragmented, retreating into small, isolated pockets. They had become small groups stuck in caves, separated from each other by the invisible barriers of social dysfunction. This genetic weakness made them vulnerable to the catastrophe that was to come. But isolation wasn't their only problem. When modern humans left Africa and spread across Eurasia, they brought something far more deadly than any weapon: our diseases. Computer models show that the diseases modern humans carried from tropical Africa created an invisible biological barrier across Eurasia. We were walking biological weapons without even knowing it. For about 130,000 years after first contact, Neanderthals and modern humans coexisted in an uneasy balance in the Middle East. Neither group could advance into the other's territory. But during this time, diseases were silently spreading through interbreeding, and modern humans had a crucial advantage. We had survived for thousands of years in the harsh disease environment of tropical Africa. Our immune systems had been tested in battle. Neanderthals were adapted to the cold climate diseases of Europe, but they had no defense against the malaria, sleeping sickness, and dozens of other African pathogens we carried. When these diseases jumped between species, they spread like wildfire among the immune-naive Neanderthal populations. Does this sound familiar? It's the same thing that happened when Europeans reached the Americas. Isolated indigenous populations were devastated by diseases like smallpox and measles. Entire civilizations collapsed not because of war, but because of invisible microscopic invaders. The same scenario played out in Europe 40,000 years ago. Already weakened by inbreeding and isolation, the Neanderthal communities could not withstand the onslaught of African diseases. Their populations dropped below sustainable levels. One by one, their fires, which had been burning for thousands of years, began to go out. While the Neanderthals were fighting this life-and-death battle in Europe, another human species was thriving in the high mountains of Asia, the Denisovans. They were almost ghostly figures, known only from a handful of bone fragments and teeth found in a Siberian cave. But their genetic legacy tells an incredible story. The Denisovans had superhuman abilities that would put modern athletes to shame. They could survive at altitudes of over 4,500 meters above sea level, where the air is so thin that most people would quickly succumb to deadly altitude sickness. Today, only Tibetans and a few other high-altitude peoples have these abilities, and they inherited them directly from their Denisovan ancestors. These mountain people didn't just survive, they explored. Denisovan DNA appears in populations spread over thousands of kilometers, from Siberia to Southeast Asia and even the Malaysian islands. This indicates they crossed bodies of water that would challenge even modern sailors, reaching islands separated by dangerous seas. They were the planet's greatest and most daring explorers. However, like the Neanderthals, the Denisovans also began to disappear around 30,000 years ago. The last known Denisovan remains are dated to this period, and again, the timing aligns precisely with the spread of modern human populations into Asia. Some Denisovans survived by joining our communities. Do you remember that young girl from the Denisova cave? The one with a Neanderthal mother and a Denisovan father? Her existence means something far deeper than a simple genetic mix. It was proof of desperate alliances forged for survival as populations collapsed. Perhaps the last Denisovans and Neanderthals came together, seeking refuge against the rapidly growing numbers of Homo sapiens. 13,000 kilometers away from the Siberian caves, on Indonesia's Flores Island, the strangest of all human stories was coming to an end. Homo floresiensis, or the hobbits, had survived for about 1 million years in one of the most dangerous environments on Earth. They were only a meter tall and had a brain the size of a chimpanzee's. Normally, they should have been easy prey, but these tiny people were extraordinarily intelligent. They made advanced stone tools, organized cooperative hunts, and somehow managed to hunt dwarf elephants, stegodon, which were many times their size. They survived volcanic eruptions, climate changes, and predators like Komodo dragons and giant carnivorous storks. For 1 million years, nothing could stop them. Then, about 50,000 years ago, they too disappeared. The timing is once again eerily precise. Archaeological evidence shows that modern humans reached the Indonesian archipelago at the exact time the last hobbit bones vanished from the fossil record. Was it competition for resources? Was it disease? Or was it direct conflict? We may never know exactly what happened in those final centuries. However, local legends on Flores Island still speak of the Ebu Gogo, small hairy people who live in caves. Strikingly, the descriptions in these stories match the hobbit fossils in extraordinary detail. Perhaps some hobbit populations survived long enough to encounter the first modern human settlers, and their story lived on in oral tradition after their bones turned to dust. As these human species disappeared one by one, something extraordinary was happening to the survivors, to us. Modern humans weren't just replacing our extinct relatives, we were absorbing them, assimilating them. DNA analysis has revealed that almost everyone alive today carries genetic material from these lost humans. Europeans and Asians carry between 1% and 4% Neanderthal DNA. Pacific Islanders carry up to 6% Denisovan genetic material. Even sub-Saharan Africans, long thought to be pure Homo sapiens, have been found to have evidence of interbreeding with unidentified archaic human species. We didn't simply eliminate our relatives. In their final generations, many of them joined our communities, became our ancestors, and passed on their genes to us over countless generations. Every single person watching this video right now is part Neanderthal, part Denisovan, and part some mysterious archaic human. We are living museums of human diversity, and the genes we inherited weren't just passengers, they were lifesavers. Neanderthal DNA helps modern Europeans fight viruses. Denisovan genes allow Tibetans to breathe at deadly altitudes. DNA from unidentified African archaic humans helps some populations resist malaria. The final gift of our extinct relatives was the genetic tools we needed to survive in a rapidly changing world. So why did we, Homo sapiens, remain the last humans standing? While our relatives were often stronger, in some ways more intelligent, or better adapted to specific environments, the answer may lie in timing. Around 40,000 years ago, the world's climate entered an unprecedented period of chaos. The planet swung between extreme cold and relative warmth every few thousand years. Ice sheets advanced and retreated. Forests turned into grasslands in a geological blink of an eye. Animals migrated. Food sources vanished. Neanderthals had survived ice ages before, but they had never had to deal with the competitive pressure and devastating diseases from modern humans at the same time. Denisovans had thrived in stable mountain environments, but they couldn't adapt when their habitats became fragmented and narrowed. The hobbits had survived volcanic eruptions and predators, but they couldn't survive the arrival of a superior competitor. Modern humans had one decisive advantage: social flexibility. While other human species were organized in small, isolated groups, we formed vast, interconnected networks. When the climate devastated one region, we could draw on resources, information, and people from thousands of kilometers away. When a local population collapsed, migrants arrived to fill the void. We weren't necessarily smarter or stronger. We were more connected. Our superpower was not our individual intelligence. It was our collective consciousness. By 28,000 years ago, the last Neanderthal fires were going out in the caves of Gibraltar. By 30,000 years ago, the last Denisovan footprints were being erased from the mountain paths of Asia. The tiny hands of the hobbits would never again chip a stone tool. For the first time in millions of years, the world was home to only a single human species. Our relatives continue to live on in our DNA, our immune systems, and our behaviors. They didn't really leave. They are a part of us. The story of the extinction of human species carries a chilling message for today. Climate change, isolation, disease, and competition created a perfect storm that wiped out species that had survived for hundreds of thousands of years. Neanderthals seemed unshakable until they were shaken. Hobbits seemed indestructible until they were gone forever. Today, as climate change accelerates and human populations become increasingly isolated by politics, technology, and geography, we must ask ourselves, are we repeating the same patterns that doomed our relatives? Are we becoming like the isolated Neanderthal groups, cut off from each other by invisible barriers? Or will we remember the lesson of our success? That survival comes not just from strength or intelligence, but from our ability to reach across differences, build connections, and work together. When all is said and done, the bones of our extinct relatives whisper a warning from the depths of time. In a universe that, as far as we know, has only produced consciousness once, we are the last humans. For now, all the Homo sapiens the universe has are us. The question is, what will we do with that responsibility? We hope this journey has been impactful for you. You can support us by subscribing to the Human Stories channel and liking the video. See you in the shadows of the past.